and it's starting to dry out, that remains wet is more than likely drying out, not drying off. And when it's drying out, that means there's water behind the cladding. This was my first visit, and I see the same thing. This wetness right here. The first thing I do, I walk around and get a view of all the elevations. Front is brick. The rest of the house is fiber cement siding we identified as James Hardy. There's penetrations. Those are always, can be a problem, so we're going to come back and take a look at those later in the presentation. We get around to the back and we see a deck, and I already know there's problems with the deck from the homeowner pictures, but we'll keep going. We got grade clearance issues here. Supposed to have 6-inch wood earth clearance, and that is not the case here. Obviously, somebody wanted to drive their golf cart straight in, so they adjusted the grade so that it could do that. But that's not a correct detail, and that does cause problems. The right-hand side of the house, same thing, fiber cement, and we're back to the front. Now, this is where my interest lies, because the main problem is water in the basement. And these two areas are still wet. We go to the roof, and in this area right here, there's approximately 140 gallons of water per inch of rain flowing down this valley and affecting this area right here. To the left side of this gable end, we have about 180 gallons of water per inch of rain flowing here. And I know from my initial inspection in the basement that this is problematic. Note the wet brick, and remember what I said, that is still wet after everything else is dry is drying out, not drying off. We go to the left-hand side here, and you notice this isn't adequately flashed. The brick is sitting on top of the shingles. There should be a roof angle here, and no kick-out flashing, no flashing whatsoever. Look under here, we see the spray foam. Somebody's been trying to address something here, and we see this little bit of mold or mildew here. This has obviously been addressed by an amateur. There's a close-up of the microbial growth, or the moss, or the mildew. Brick laid on the shingles. No flashing. How do you think we're going to service these shingles over the life of the roof? Here's a detail of the steel angle that is supposed to be on top of the roof plane to bear the weight of those shingles. You're not supposed to just set brick on top of the shingles and on top of the roof sheeting like we see so many times. I'm sure you guys have seen all that. Another detail just to show you what's available. In when you're doing your own reports, you can get all these details. I have a link at the end of my presentation that a paper that shows all the links that I use for details. Supporting brick veneer with steel angle. Here, another one shows the angle on the roof. This is a code drawing. I know some of you guys can't refer to code. And remember, code is the minimal detail that you can build to. There's all sorts of detail that's available besides the code docs to show this. On the left-hand side up here, this was never completed. And remember, I said 190 gallons or 180 gallons per inch of rain flows right down here And to think that it doesn't affect this in a heavy rain, not get in here, they left this totally unprotected. Inside, Bill just talked about the value of the thermal imaging. Well, you can see right here that there's a thermal anomaly in this area, and those thermal anomalies are consistent with moisture intrusion. This leads to more questions in my investigation. And here you see moisture meter readings. I probe through the drywall to the exterior sheathing. Sometimes when I'm probing through, I can feel that that exterior sheathing has turned into what I call vertical mulch. This is down at the base, 99.9. You should not see moisture readings really above 16, 17%. 30% in wood is considered saturated. We're back outside the area that I showed earlier that remains wet. No kick out flashing, no flashing here. A lot of water, 180 gallons of water, or 140, I believe, on this side, coming down per inch of rain. And you can see where the mortar is degraded. What happens is over the years, the brick mortar gets wet, and in the fall it doesn't dry out as well. So we go into winter with wet mortar, and when moisture freezes, it expands 9%, and that creates spalling, damage to the mortar joints, as well as you can see some of the bricks have popped and spalled here. They just can't handle that freezing. Another view from the roof, and you can see right here, they forgot to put the siding on. Inside, more thermal anomalies consistent with interstitial moisture. By the way, this is kind of a neat feature that FLIR does. When you have the compass on, it does communicate with the satellite and gives you geostationary location. I'll take that slide off because you guys could find the house with that information. Here again, 70, 99, 70, 40. We know it's wet. Around the window, there should be a backer rod and sealant joint all the way around this window. This is a Pella window. Pella says that you will leave a 3/8 inch gap between any adjacent surface so you can install a backer rod and sealant joint. This is a close-up, and if any of you that are familiar with Pella windows will recognize that blue metal nail fin on the Pella window. There's no backer rod and sealant joint is recommended by the window manufacturer. Here again, the window manufacturer, 3/8 inch clearance. All windows require a clearance. A lot of them give a 1/4 inch, and I don't feel that a 1/4 is enough. I'd rather see a 1/2 inch at the brick to a window jamb, but a 1/4 inch on a lot of them, 3/8 on Pella. What's wrong here? This is the sill. This sill flashing should be embedded in a sealant to keep water from going behind. Now, in brick, they do have a weep system. We'll cover that in a little bit. Here's my water test. A little water testing reveals a weakness in the assembly. I just have a hose up on the roof, spraying up on the roof so the water runs down. No kick out. Note the water streaming down the face of the brick. Again, you can see damage to the brick here where it's spalled a little bit. These mortar joints aren't as tight and consistent as the mortar joints in the field that you would see right up in here. This needs a properly installed flashing. A properly installed kickout flashing would manage water and keep it out at the exterior. It would keep it out to the exterior and eliminate water infiltration behind the brick and protect the mortar joints from saturation. The water saturation in the mortar is a key failure point in freezing conditions. And if you go into winter with the saturated mortar, as I stated earlier, the freezing will fall and crack the mortar joints. We have through wall flashing and rope weeps right down here. That's a rope weep. There's a close-up. You can see the through wall flashing, and this is put in correctly. But with the amount of water that is getting behind the brick, these rope weeps, there's no way that it can keep up. When I consult on a new job, none of my people will ever use a rope weep again. It's for incidental moisture only, and there only should be incidental moisture behind the brick. But in this case, with all these openings, it was far more than incidental. Here's a weep. We often see them just placed sporadically in the assembly. There's no through wall there. The mason just threw a weep in for good measure, but it's ineffective. We'll go down in the basement. This is under the leak. This was at my water test. Remember, you can see water dripping clear out here on the joists. This is the sill plate. This is a timber strand sill plate. Not all of you would be familiar with this, but it's an OSB product that's been treated for moisture resistance and rot and decay. It's used in place of treated wood. And you can see here it's getting wet, and there's a little distortion and damage to that timber strand sill plate. Over on this side, we see these water stains. I have the opportunity in my investigations to tear stuff apart. You home inspectors are not able to do that, but it's always good for you to be able to see what is behind some of the stains that you see when you're doing your home inspections, so you can give recommendations for people to pull stuff apart. This is up in that corner. This is a great picture of the vertical mulch. And you notice right here, there's a close-up. That's the weather barrier, the vertical mulch, and there's a brick. This is not at all draining as it should. At this point, I go up into the garage that's right outside of this. It's right to this side. And you can see where we've moved a piece of furniture. This staining here is indicative of moisture intrusion, and you can see where it's been coming in. I am able to open these up, and the water damage to the sheathing is here all the way into the floor system. This is a hardwood floor upstairs in this office where I took those moisture readings through the drywall, and that hardwood floor had been showing evidence of moisture in it as well. I was able to just peel this amount of OSB out here. I didn't really have to cut it. I took a razor blade knife and made a couple little cuts, and I was able to just pull that out of there. Again, the brick. There's the paper. They didn't do a good job of covering and protecting. Now, I did get slides. I did get pictures from the contractor they hired to repair this. This was not one of my repair jobs. I didn't have the opportunity to overview things as the repairs were being made. And here's a good example of your vertical mulch. But you know, guys, we already knew that it was going to be in this condition when I did my moisture probes through the wall. It's amazing what a little water will do over time. Here's an example of a kick out and a flashing that would have prevented the damage on this house. The repairs are finished now. They pulled the brick off and put adhered stone on. And for you guys that just attended my session for adhered stone veneer at the EDI and got certified for stone veneer inspections, you'll appreciate what I'm going to show you here. Repairs finished. They do have a kick out. But any of you guys who were in my session, tell me what's wrong here.
It's on top of the shingles, and that's not a proper
On top. That's correct. There's no weep screed there. There's no clearance there, and it's down. It's not totally tight to the shingles, but you remember it's supposed to be a 2-inch clearance here. That was you, Sean, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Good, good. I turned you loose on society.
Watch out, world.
And here we go again. Same thing. And a lot of times when I'm involved in fixing these, I'll modify this roof so the valley will come out past here. I'll go back a couple slides. See, this valley already comes out past, which gives a lot of protection. And there's ways to modify these roofs so that that also has the same amount of protection there. You want to get all that water out of there. Water is our friend and our enemy. Too much of it, you drown. Not enough of it, you die of thirst. Now we're going to go to some other problems. This is the leaking door at the deck. When I was inside, this is what it looks like. You really don't see a lot of problems here. But with my moisture meter in the scan setting, 50.1, that's wet. In the probe setting, 42.5, that's wet. And the homeowner, the seller, acted all offended when they found out about this, and that anybody would ever question as to whether they knew this was happening or not. And the homeowner pictures that I showed you, you remember the streaming down water coming in at the deck door. There's no way that the seller didn't know about this. At my inspection, I pulled back the carpet a little bit to reveal just these pictures went into the case report. And all of you familiar with those awls, that's about a 5-inch metal shaft on that, and I pushed it through with no effort whatsoever. From these findings here, this will lead me to go down the basement and once again poke through the drywall. The top is 69.2%, the bottom's 54%. This is under the leaking door. The leaking door's up here, and if you notice, we don't see any staining on this drywall. There was no staining on this drywall. And this had been happening, had to be happening for years. Elevated moisture. When I throw out a moisture measurement of 54.2%, I try to call it elevated moisture because that's the reading. And keep in mind, wood is considered saturated at 30%. Anything above 20 is a big problem. I had some pictures that the contractor sent me. This was the extent of the rod at the time of the repairs. And here's where they took it out and removed it. Not only was the door leaking, but it doesn't look like it was set right here. A lot of times water leaks under the door. I'm sure that you guys have encountered that as well in your inspections.
Hey, Mark,
Yes.
what percentage should home inspectors start talking about saturation in wood?
Are you referring when you? I'll tell you what. On my protimeter, let me go back a couple slides. We've got time here. I'm on slide 81. I got 107. We're going to have time for some questions. But my protimeter here, this is an LED gauge, and you guys that are familiar with them, this is in the red zone, and the green zone starts turning yellow at about 16-17%, and then it's yellow as a caution. It says at risk down here. This right here says wet right now, but when it's in the green zone, that's right down in here, and then it turns yellow right in here, and that goes to red at about 20%. So anything 20 or over is problematic. On a protimeter, it goes from 0 to 99.9, and that's just a relative measurement. Some of you that have the Delmhorst meters, some of the Delmhorst shut down at 42. I've got a scanning Tramex meter that reads in the wood mode. It goes from 5 to 54%. But anything over 30% is considered saturated. If you're doing moisture measurements, I would consider anything 16 to 17 is problematic, and anything over that is damaging and ought to be reviewed in depth.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
And I give you a long answer because there's a lot to talk about, and you'll get pushback from people. But if you guys can rehearse that and learn that, it's really good to know. Anybody who has any questions as we're going through these now, go ahead and pipe up a little bit, because I'm always concerned that I make it through in time and present well, but I don't want to go so fast that I'm flooding over everything.
You're halfway.
Yeah. I'm at 81 of 107, so we're doing good. So now we're going to go out and look at the siding. A lot of penetrations here. And you notice the siding is kind of tipped out here a little bit. It's loose. When I go up to the siding and I can tap on it, and there's a little bit of rattle, I call that wrong. The siding should be tight. You should not be able to tap it and get a little bit of a flex and a rattle. You can hear it inside when the wind blows. That's a complaint of the new owners.
Hey, Mark.
I've had cases where the mom and dad say that it rattles so bad it scares their kids, and they're in bed with them during the evening, at night. And I'm still waiting for that case where they assert that the marriage broke up because the kids were always in bed and with them because it was so scary, and the intimacy in the marriage failed. So I'm waiting for that one. I've had some weird cases.
Can you go back one slide, Mark?
I can. There
One more.
or this.
Nick was talking about silpan flashing under that door. Yeah, right there. Up.
Right there. Right there.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, there's no SOPAN flashing there. And you should have a. My screen is small, so if anybody's texting me or chatting with me, I don't see it.
No, you're
You
good.
know, on my pre interview. So
That's what I'm
I'm
doing.
not sure how to get it large again.
It's all good.
Okay. So yeah,
Mark,
bring these up.
Mark,
Yeah. Yes.
you follow the procedure where the deck should be lower than the main floor in order to prevent water from entering?
I always like a deck lower than the main floor. Now, uh, I personally like it a minimum of 4 inches or 3.5 inches, because you can put um, a piece of PVC under the deck door, and that isolates the siding up off of the deck. Well, with ADA requirements, I'm inspecting a bunch of buildings right now that are apartment buildings that have elevators inside, and they will not allow the deck doors to have any height from the deck at all. And I'm working on a 9 building apartment unit where they've had to come in and replace, I think they're on door 140 right now to replace them, and they're no more than 4 years old because the guys didn't put them in right. So it's a big deal. On a residential dwelling, if you can have the deck drop, that is a real plus. Does that take care of it?
Yep.
Yeah. Also, I guess I don't believe in ramps.
In ramps?
Yeah, that would solve the problem. If you drop the deck 2 to 4 inches and put a ramp in, that would handle ADA.
Yeah, and the ramp, though, when you look at the ADA, if you had it 4 inches down, you'd have quite a ramp. It's not just a little slope ramp. I don't have those figures in front of me, but one of the builders that I was working with wanted to do that. And when they did the calculations of the ramp, it was quite a bit. If I might be wrong, but a half-inch per foot is what strikes my memory here. Somebody else could clarify that. But if you were 4 inches down, a half-inch per foot would give you an 8-foot ramp. Then that seems a little ridiculous. And as I say that out loud, it might not be a half per foot, but
Bud said
I've
it's
seen them.
3 degree slope max.
Okay.
As I remember.
Yeah.
My memory fails me, but I remember 3 degrees.
Okay. Well, you can figure that out, whatever 3 degrees is in inches, you know.
Yeah, there's no bolts in that ledger there either.
Oh, yeah. I had other pictures. One thing that is good, the joist hanger, when you put it on, that little angle nail is not supposed to be a small Tico nail, the 1 1/4. Absolutely not. It's supposed to be 2.5 to 3 inches. You have to look at the joist hanger nomenclature, and it'll tell you where to go to find that information. Okay, we're back to the siding, and you can see the fractured nails. That's why these drop out of plane so many times. The guys nail them up there, and they fracture, and they drop out of plane. This is high nailed. This is supposed to be Hardy says 3/4 of an inch to an inch down from the top of the wood, or the top of the board. This is not that. Dropping out of plane, like I said. Never mind the hole. The hole was there. Again, 3/4 of an inch on my rule is right about there. I'm sure you've all seen this.
Were you able to lift that without damaging the siding? Was that
I can.
in a row?
I'll tell you how I take that picture. I have a wood wedge, okay? And I was involved in the CertainTeed class action lawsuit, doing some investigation on a few units, and there was an investigator that came into town to review some of my work, and she carried with her a rubber doorstop and a wedge-shaped rubber doorstop, and that's how she would hold the siding out. And right now, I just cut a wedge out of a 2x4. It's about 1.5 inches on one end, down to nothing on the other end, about 6 inches long, and that piece of siding is only about 3/4 of an inch away, bowed out. But I carry a camera that's got one of my tough cameras, and it's got the lens up in the left-hand corner. Well, when you flip the camera upside down and stick it up there, now the lens is in a perfect position to take this picture. And that picture looks like I have that siding whacked out so far that it would damage everything. That's only out about 3/4 of an inch. You want to be careful when you're out that far, because it can loosen stuff above. But generally, when I'm doing my inspection and it's forensic in nature, I have a little more liberality than you guys as home inspectors do. So, does that answer that?
It's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
The tough cams, I go to Best Buy, by the way, and I buy my cameras from there, and I buy the $25 warranty, and they just replace the camera when it goes down. But I used to use those cameras where the small cameras and the lens would pop out, like a lot of you guys use. And when you turn it on, the lens pops out. But dust, it was terrible. The dust gets in it, and they don't last long. So I bought the warranties, and I'd always get new ones. Well, Fuji came out with their little tough cam, and I think you can get it for $169 at Best Buy, and that's the one with the lens up in the corner. But I use the Nikon version of that. It's a little tougher. It's waterproof. I take it with me scuba diving when I have that opportunity once in a while. So that just goes to show it's built for the water, so there ain't no way any dust is getting in it. And those cameras just play and play. So we're going to the trim. No flashing over the horizontal trim. Now, from being out at Nova ASHI, I know you guys can't recite code, which really sucks. But the guys who can recite code, there is a section in the code that says all protruding trim, wood trim, will be covered with the flashing. And this is a protruding horizontal piece of wood. It's hardboard, but it's still wood product, and it'll damage. So that's number one. There's nothing here, no protection here. Number two, if you look in the Hardy manual, you're supposed to be cut up from here. So your Hardy's not supposed to come down to it. The next picture I'll show you has that detail. Now you don't even have to go to code. The flashing is required over the horizontal trim. And you can see, here's the flashing, and note, 3/16 inch space flashing. Supposed to have a 3/16 inch space there. It depends on the siding. Whether it be LP is a little bit different than Hardy. But those, for you guys who can't cite code, you don't have to. You can go into the diagrams into those links that I sent you that you're gonna get at the end of this presentation, or maybe in your invitation. You have that information, and you can find all this information. The penetrations, those are not right. Even though they're sealed, they may be functioning correctly, but those are not correct. This is from James Hardy. You're supposed to have this block and mount it around here. Notice on Hardy trim or on these blocks, you're supposed to have a minimum of 22.5-degree weather cut. So on your corner boards that are Hardy trim and on these blocks, wherever two pieces butt together, you're supposed to be a weather cut. LP's different. They don't require that. They want you to leave a gap and caulk it, which fails very rapidly, I might add. But you can pick that up too. They're supposed to have a 22.5-inch weather cut, a 22.5-degree weather cut. Here again, a hose bib, same thing. They want a block on there. This is out of the best practices flashing or best practices installation manual from James Hardy. And you guys in the south, you're in zone 10. You guys in the north, you're in zone 5. Clearance from the roof and concrete is 2 inches in zone 5. It's 1 inch in zone 10. So you want to make sure that you're familiar with your particular details in your area of the country. This is great. I don't even need to make a lot of comment on here. Right here, this joint, this is a butt joint. And this is LP Smart Side trim. And they want a gap in here with sealant. And you can see how this is starting to degrade. There's no sealant, they just butt it tight. Clearance at your decks. Hardy has a few different details. Now, as time goes, they come up with more details, but they're very good at pictures, and you can find those and know what you're talking about. This is supposed to be at least a 1-inch clearance in the south and 2-inch in the north. This trim board, Miratech or LP, is supposed to be at least 1 inch up. This is from Hardy, and this is the level of detail that you can get and include in your report. You got a minimum 2-inch clearance from the highest point of the decking. Here is another alternate detail from Hardy. They've been a little flashing here. It's still the 2-inch clearance, and you got a 1/4-inch gap here. One more deck photo. Completely open. Water can get in there and get flow behind the ledger and create issues.
Not to mention that all the field cuts are supposed to be flashed.
That's exactly right. Everything. Painted. Yes.
I meant painted.
Yeah, painted and sealed. Yes, right here. And there's no way that was done. But, you know, when you see all that, this house was completely resided, by the way. And so it's I haven't completely re-inspected it yet. There's some great details. This is EPA indoor air plus. You can find this online, and this is a nice detail. It really shows how things should be done. So you guys, when you're trying to express to somebody what they did wrong, especially if you get into this consulting gig like I do, some of you guys will do this. Some of you guys will naturally start picking up some of this work. It's good work. You know, you got to know what you're doing. But a lot of you guys can take your knowledge that you know now and expand on it and learn more and go and help some of these people out. You know, the houses, the beautiful houses, they're nothing but chocolate covered turds. And I don't care how great a chocolate you put on the turd, when you lick it off, the core is all the same. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Another,
Uh,
what's
Mark,
that?
shouldn't in that previous slide you just left,
Yep.
shouldn't the bolts going into the house on the ledger board be staggered?
Yes, I'm not going to say that the EPA did a great job. That's a government body. I'm using this as a flashing, diverting water from the deck ledger. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll tell you what. There is a great document that I did not put in. There is in what I sent. You can look it up online, and it is a builder's guide to the code, to the deck code, and it's really got a lot of pictures in it, and it does go over all the staggering and joints. I will get that information and send it to Sean and Hollis, and we'll so that they can share it with you.
I'd love to get a copy. Thank you.
Sure, you bet. And listen,
And Mark,
after this, I don't always. I'm busy. I'm really busy. But guys, when I put this out to all my people that listen to me, you can contact me, and if and you can find my information, the building consultant.com. While you're there, watch my H2O video and give it some likes. It was recorded for a pilot for the Do-It-Yourselfer network for consideration for a series. Now, they turned me down because they said it was too good. I couldn't do it every week. And I sure would like to try. But anyway, you guys can contact me and ask questions, and I'm busy, and if I don't get back to you within a couple days, doggone it, hit it back up again. But badger me, because if I tell you that I'm going to answer your question, I'm going to answer it. Okay?
Mark, as a supplement, I'd recommend the American Wood Council's DCA 6 as a guide as well.
Oh, you know what? That's it. That I believe that's it. Isn't that the one that's a guide to the deck building code or something?
It's the prescriptive guide, yes.
Yeah. That's a wonderful document, and they have them. They title them Builder's Guide to the 2012 and the 2015 and whatever, but not much changes. But that's a wonderful guide. Yes, there's a lot of information online. You can get sucked into it and spend a lot of time. Moving on, clearance at grade. At grade, you're supposed to, there's a 6-inch wood earth clearance. And yes, fiber cement is not wood, but right up underneath this, there's wood. And there's sheathing, and that's wood. And you're supposed to be 6 inches. That's a code for you guys who can cite code, but I'll show you a Hardy document that also says 6-inch wood earth clearance, and so does LP. And granted, this is a gravel or a rock grade, and they're a little bit more forgiving, but even so, look at all the damage that's here. And the siding right there is starting to spall out, and they didn't do a good job of caulking. Oh, wait a minute, we were talking about grade. Again, it was obvious so that he could get his golf cart in there, the former owner, or a riding lawnmower or whatever. But that causes these issues right here. The grass has this dew on it, and it just feeds into the wood and wicks in. It'll ruin the siding as well. This is the other side. And here is the ground clearance detail from the manufacturer. That's a James Hardy document, and you guys can find all these. It even gives an IBC code reference right here. And that's what they're doing. They're citing code, and they're citing what their requirements are They go hand in hand. We made it to the end of my slide presentation.
I had a question from before, Mark.
Yes, and I can go back if I need to.
What would be one of the best ways to check for the flashing between the joints of the hardy siding?
I'll tell you what. You can pull that siding up just a little bit, like I did, or you can look between the joint too, right? You find your widest space joint and shine your flashlight in there. Now, we use metal in our area. We use metal flashing. Some of you guys have, some people use felt paper. Felt paper isn't all that good. It degrades over time. And we've come to where the painted metal seems to be the best performing. But you can pull that siding out just a little bit. It doesn't take much. And you can look up in there. Other questions?
I was at a house just a couple days ago, Mark, and they didn't use painted metal. They used very shiny metal.
Okay.
You could stand back from the house. You can
it always shines through.
The house, you see it shining out all over the place.
yeah, and that's at least you knew it was there, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
Mark, do you offer training to anybody?
I do. I've spoke the last 6 years at the inspection worlds, and that's generally a 2-hour session. But from there, I go out to. I've spoke at several of the ASHI, Indy ASHI, Western Washington, Nova, and a couple more out east. And I come in, I have a 4-hour session and an 8-hour session. Don't ask me to do a 2-hour session because I don't know how to do that. I just go through my slides of failures. You guys didn't even see any of my failure slides here this time. I go through a lot of cases that we have and ones that I'm brought in to officiate over, and I just give you the training from real world history, real life history.
I don't suppose you come to Florida.
Boy, my schedule's all tied up till about December, and I think I'm open for a Florida trip in December.
All right,
I'm going to send you an email so you let me know.
I'm kidding you. I'd come anytime. I've got a 1 million square foot building down in Dallas, Texas, that I'm going to be going inspecting here if they don't shut the country down in the next couple months. And it's stucco and eaves, and it occupies 3 square city blocks, and it's a retirement community, so it's not one big 4-sided building. It's a retirement center with all kinds of courtyards in it. So there's little 4 walls in there too. So I do travel.
I got another question for you, Mark.
Yeah.
How do you respond to brick veneer, peel and stick, or adhered masonry without a drainage plane and therefore no weeps?
Without a drainage plane. Now, wait a minute. Brick. Give me that again. Brick
veneer.
Veneer. Okay, real brick or thin brick?
Either. Or adhered masonry.
But it's adhered?
Yeah. Well, the question was peel and stick or adhered masonry.
You mean lick and stick or adhered?
Right.
Okay. That's where most of my cases come from, is failure of that. And how do I respond with bear with me here on the fact that it doesn't have a drainage plane or a way to drain.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you respond when it doesn't have a drainage plane and therefore no weeps?
Okay. The MVMA. If you look at is that slide? Yeah, that slide's up there right now. Let me go down here. If you guys go to MVMA Manufacturer Stone Installation Guide and download that, it shows how it has a lot of details in there.
And you guys, just so you know, when the event that you guys signed in from should have these links also, so you can go get them there. The calendar
good.
event.
And but those, it is to drain. You are supposed to drain a adhered stone veneer, and typically it's just like stucco. Stone veneer, guys, adhered stone veneer is nothing more than stucco with a lumpy finish coat or a glued on rock over the finish coat. When you put on the lath and the scratch, that makes it a stucco system, and you're supposed to have a minimum of 2 layers of weather-resistant barrier underneath all of that that's drainable. But characteristically, that fails. So you need, it's better to use an actual drain plane, then put your lath on, but you got to make sure that it's drained at the bottom. If you go online and go into my website, you can read one of my articles from the JLC. It's called How to Destroy a Wall in 2 Easy Steps. And they put a drain plane material back behind the stone veneer, but they forgot to make it drainable at the bottom. And they didn't put a kickout flashing in up on top, and it just fed all that water down inside. And within 4 months, this wall was rotten. And yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Would you agree that because it's a lumpy wall that makes the conditions worse compared to stucco? Because you got all those potential joints that are potential inlets for moisture and water.
Well, listen, here, I understand what you're talking about, especially in a dry stack system, okay? And but if the scratch coat was done correctly, then it's supposed to keep that water out. But very seldom is scratch coat done correctly, because scratch coat is supposed to be 3/8 of an inch to a 1/2 an inch thick most of the time, and your metal is supposed to be fully embedded in it. Most of the time, you can't even find anything that's even a 1/4 inch thick.